Hello, nonprofit leaders. I'm Sarah Olivieri, your host, and this podcast is here to assist people like you, executive directors, board members, and other nonprofit leaders, make a bigger impact with insights, tips, and lessons learned from nonprofit leaders and experts. Having been an executive director, a board member, and now a consultant and coach, I truly understand the challenges you face. And that's why I'm here. I'm all about working smarter, not harder, so you can make a bigger impact without the burnout. And so is our sponsor, DonorBox. DonorBox isn't just a suite of helpful fundraising tools, it's a partner that helps you raise more money and supports you in retaining your donors. I love their forward thinking approach. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. And don't forget to sign up for the Inspired Nonprofit Leadership newsletter, where you'll get bite-sized, actionable tips just for nonprofit leaders like you, delivered weekly to your inbox. Sign up at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. My guest for this episode is Chris Conlee, who is an Army veteran and a longtime Hollywood film editor who traded the red carpet for the server room to build something that matters. After a series of perfect storm disasters, as a sailor, that speaks to my heart, including a total industry shutdown and losing lead developer, he spent 6 months teaching himself to code with AI to rebuild Hipster, which I'm sure we'll learn about, from the ground up. His wife, Shoshana, and he now run this community of micro donors where they prove every day that a bunch of people giving just $1 a month can collectively change the life of an underdog charity. Welcome, Chris. It is such a pleasure to be here. Before we dive into nonprofit leadershipy things and fundraising things, we just share a little more about yourself personally so we can get to know you.
Yeah, sure. My bio made me sound real exciting, but I'm not sure that's exactly true. I am an Army veteran. I moved to Hollywood in about 1991, I guess, and knew nobody, but was, just convinced I was going to become the next Steven Spielberg or something. And uh, through hard work and just diligent effort, I did manage to sort of build a career in entertainment industry. I've been an editor. I've worked on shows like FBI and The Flash and some of those Sandlot 3 and Once Upon a Time. So the resume is exciting, I guess, but despite all that, as you get a little older, I guess, you start to think, boy, maybe there's more to life than just this. And we'll get into it, but my wife also is in the entertainment industry. She's basically retired now, but we met on a set, and during COVID is when the idea for our current nonprofit venture sprang forth, and that's what Pifster is, which stands for Pay It Forward.
Mm,
That's the genesis of the name, Pay It Forward. So one who pays it forward is therefore a Pifster, I guess.
I love it.
So
So
so that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, where your project is now, what inspired this, and what have you seen so far with, the power of paying it forward with small donations?
Well, so it kind of happened during COVID, really. We were, all of us were living in a different reality, trying to figure out what was going on, how we, how our lives were impacted. And everybody started kind of working from home. And so my wife and I were walking, as we often did, around the neighborhood. And we live in East LA, which is very, it's a largely Hispanic population still, and it's very family oriented. And there were lots of family outings and stuff, even during that period. And we would see it, but we would also see this need out in the street. Things people needed to get groceries, people needed to get to the doctor, people needed this, that, or the other thing. And the large nonprofits, God bless them, I've got nothing against large nonprofits. They're doing what they need to do, and that's great. But what we saw on the street, you know, was these really micro mom and pops that were just getting things done in the moment. People to doctor's appointments during that time, especially, was it was, we didn't know what was happening. So there was kind of a leap of faith, both on the part of the people that were getting the ride and the people that were giving the ride. But they were just, their heart was in helping. And one day my wife just said to me, if we had $1 from anybody that cared, we could fix this, or we could serve this, or we could solve this. And I have a slight background in tech. I got a degree in computer systems engineering from like 1986, which COBOL and Fortran is far removed from what happens these days. But I thought, well, maybe we could make an app, and we could do that. We could collect a dollar donation from people who cared, and we could have people suggest charities or causes that are important to them and vote on them. And then at the end of each month, we could support a different charity. So that's the genesis of it. And it was probably naive, but it's what was put on our heart,
Yeah.
So we decided we were going to try to do that. And I was working in the entertainment industry at the time and was making fairly decent money. And we did some research. We reached out. We found a developer in India who was willing to build this app for us. So we built the app and we filed for our, nonprofit. And I don't know where your audience generally stands on the matter of faith, but my wife and I are Christian, and we kind of felt like maybe it had been put on our heart to do this. And we filed for the nonprofit status, and we got our letter of exemption within like 3 weeks, which I've heard since then is kind of unheard of. So it just kind of reaffirmed to us, maybe this was meant to be. We launched in, I guess, January of 2023, kind of we were still in the middle of that thing, but we had industry support because we both had coworkers and friends and things. So we came out of the gate fairly strong, raising like between $500 and $1,000 a month or something for this crazy idea we had. And it, for these little nonprofits, that was a reasonable and kind of an exciting thing. If you
Yeah.
get a check for $500 and you're rescuing feral cats or getting a, cut and neuter and release program or something, that's a sizable thing. So we kind of trudged along for a year or two, and we were growing, and then everything kind of fell apart.
So tell us what happened. I could tell this part of the story was coming. We may have been naive.
Yeah,
There were some lessons to learn along the way, which you never would have learned if you hadn't have started. So
this is true. And I feel a bit like a charlatan being on a podcast about leadership, because clearly our mission was more driven by heart and naivete than by any great leadership. But we did have a heart for helping. We were growing slowly but steadily with the help of industry insiders primarily. And then all of a sudden there was this industry shutdown, big strike. The writers and the actors had a strike, work dried up. And then that was followed very shortly by the wildfires in California. And a lot of our sort of support base was impacted by that. We weren't, by the grace of God, but a lot of writers and producers and directors and folks that had been fairly generous to us suddenly were leaving town, and it just kind of, through attrition, things started going the wrong direction, let's say. And then on top of that, all of a sudden, when you're running a mobile app, that was a learning curve right off the bat, because you're constantly dealing with Apple and Google Store and their policies, and they're constantly updating libraries and this thing and that thing that you have to stay on top of, or your app will no longer be on the store, or it'll stop working. So it becomes a very expensive proposition. And we were constantly on the phone to India, which was a hassle because it's 12 hours different. So coming home, anyhow. So we're always on the phone. Hey, we need to fix the app. We need to do this. We need to do that to stay in compliance with Google or Apple. And all of a sudden, the emails and phone calls stopped being answered. And we're just, what's going on? I finally was able to get a hold of one of our guys' teammates, and he let us know that our lead developer had developed pancreatitis, and it had gone, horribly wrong, and he had passed away.
Wow.
so suddenly not only were we a bit heartbroken because for 2 or 3 years we'd sort of been dealing with Roy as our, a friend, and he was behind the project pretty wholeheartedly and had helped us a lot. But we were kind of locked out of the code, and we hadn't really, I guess, for lack of a better term, set up a succession plan or anything. We were just kind of in a bad pickle. So we were faced with this idea that we were either just going to let this Pifster dream go away, or we were going to have to find another way to do it. And hiring someone to build it from scratch was not an option because we had already spent, I don't really want to say how much we'd spent, but we spent a lot.
You spend more than you raised, I'm gonna guess.
We definitely spent like an order of magnitude. It was based on heart, not necessarily
Yeah.
good business sense, I'll say. But so we still weren't, again, we sort of felt like it had maybe been divinely put on our heart to do it. So I just wasn't ready to let it die. And my wife is even more impassioned than I am about the mission of the thing. So that's, if she was here today, she wouldn't stop talking about what it is we're doing. She's so excited. But so you're stuck with me in the tech side. So AI had just come into its thing. And like I said, I had a degree from Oregon Institute of Technology in 1985, COBOL and Fortran, which is completely, but it did give me some ideas about where guardrails were in terms of coding.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll mess around with AI and see if I can rebuild this app. And the other thing I had going for me was I had worked so closely with Roy and his team. The first time we built it, I still had the design sketches, the notes, and everything that had gone into building it. So literally, while it was a catastrophe that there was no work to be had, it was also a blessing in disguise because it gave me the time to lock myself in a room and hardly saw my wife for about 4 or 5 months. But from 6 in the morning till 6, 7 at night, I was messing around with AI, and there was some starts and stops. But eventually I started to realize, I mean, I don't know how much you want to get into this, but if anybody's interested in, can you build sort of an enterprise quality thing with AI? The answer is yes.
Yeah. I think people are wondering that. And I've played around with it, nothing, to take to fruition, but I wanted to see like, how doable is this? And especially once somebody told me they were talking about strengths of different large language models, and they're like, ChatGPT is really good at coding. So I picked up an AI powered, actually, first I picked up ChatGPT, who advised me in which AI powered tools to use. And then rather than use those tools, internal AI, I used ChatGPT to guide me through creating the prompts because I also had heard that ChatGPT is really good at creating prompts. So creating the prompts and teaching me how to use the two tools to actually build something. And I was amazed how quickly things spun up. And in my past life doing web development projects, I've worked with coders from India. I've been there, right? Like, wow, does the AI like get what should be done so fast, like out of the box with relatively little instruction. It's like bloop, 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 and here's this beautiful thing that already works. 10 minutes later, right? It's going to take you more than 10 minutes, but you can start getting something within an hour. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the thing that I learned. I got started with an IDE, an integrated development environment called Windsurf, which is built on top of Microsoft's VS Code. And it has AI built in, and you can select from multiple models. And of course, it is a cost thing. So you pay to get tokens, and then you can select models. Well, you touched on exactly what I realized eventually. It's very exciting because you can tell it to do something and it'll just go off and start doing something. So at first I thought, wow, this is amazing. But I realized if you don't build real actionable guardrails, it will blow through them and misinterpret or over engineer, under engineer, or miss the goal.
Yeah.
So there were definitely times when I had to back up and start over. But to your exact point, what I finally figured out as a nonprofit, we've got a great deal on Google Workspace, which has Gemini Pro included.
Yeah.
So anybody that's in the nonprofit space, they probably know that already. But if you don't, Google's pretty generous with their workspace thing. So for like, I don't know, $6 a month or something, we get not only our, pifter.org email, but we also get the Gemini Pro.
Yeah.
So I would use that as a side advisor, basically. And then over here, I'd pick whatever model the zeitgeist was saying was currently the best at coding. And I would literally start having a conversation. I would say, I need to do this. And then it would respond. And I take that and I go over to Google and I'd say, okay, ChatGPT or Claude is saying this in order to accomplish this. What do you think? And I would go back and forth 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
until it had a serious plan in place. And then I'd say, and it's so bizarre. This is getting off topic, but I can see how the young kids or whatever are getting mind blown and, having strange relationships with their AI and stuff because you end up having these conversations where it feels like you're really dealing with somebody. And then when having gone back and forth, I'd say, are you ready to implement? Yeah, I think I am. Boom, do it. And then it would build and it would have some guardrails in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. So I love, what I'm hearing is, and while like I'm encouraging listeners to like try this stuff, but my maybe word of warning from the example you gave and the example I gave, like your computer coding background, even though those are old sorts of code, the concepts around how you build things out, how you build guardrails, how you describe projects, thinking through some of the foundational things, I'm sure are still very relevant. It was for me in doing this, my website development understanding, even though like, no one's using Dreamweaver anymore. What?
Right.
I need to know what Dreamweaver is.
Right.
Rotated, right? A little. I may be older than my look. So, but the concept of we need to have the foundation, right? The foundation of the database we're using, if we're using multiple databases or how we're structuring them, without having to know too much, but you do need to have this concept of guardrails or things like, and be able to know in advance, like, how scalable do we need this? Do we need things like only I log in, or is there like another layer of admin where other people can log in? So there's these concepts of how like tools work that it is helpful, I think, if you have that background so you don't make a bunch of mush that has to be like undone when you need to grow a little.
I think it's more than helpful. If somebody wants to build something useful, I would highly recommend. In fact, I think it's mandatory that you at least just read up on the basic concept of software structure. To your point exactly, one of the things that I found out as I was working on this was kind of a current software design strategy is called domain-driven design,
Okay.
DDD. It just means that each piece of your software basically has its own domain. So
Mm.
you've got the authentication, which is your login example. You have your, whatever your donations, you have your email reporting, you have each thing is like its own little domain. And then that domain has beneath it little elements of entities and repositories and things that deal specifically with that domain, right? So once I found out that this was a current topic of conversation in the software world, that's how I started responding and dealing with my AI back and forth chat. Okay, given that we're working on a domain driven design project, and then, I feel all smart. It's like, oh, that's really good, Chris. You ruined. And you start going back and forth.
You speak their language and you enter their club, and then you have a team of helpers.
I guess. I mean, it's really strange. though. This is completely off topic too, but we had a friend from Georgia show up the other day, and he's got Copilot on his phone,
Mhm.
and Copilot talks. I'm not used to talking. I type everything to Gemini, so he's always like, "Hey, Copilot, tell me this, tell me that." And so I thought, well, what happens if you have two co-pilots talking? So we were like, hey, we just brought a second phone in as if it was part of the group, my wife and Vinny and myself talking. And we're like, hey, he calls his co-pilot Clyde. Hey, Clyde, tell us a joke about something. He does. And then the other one chimes in. Pretty soon the two phones are talking. It's like, what is this world that we're in?
Yeah.
I don't know if they know that they were,
I
both
I
computers.
love this conversation so much because I just recorded another episode with a woman who runs an organization that recently put out a data-driven report about leadership and resilience and strategy for nonprofits and foundations. And one of their of 4 key recommendations that came out of the report, one of them was like don't fall behind with AI. Like, don't be afraid of it. Like, figure out partnerships, figure out how to do it, like, kinda dive in a little. So I love that we are now having this conversation, like a real example. Like, you dove in, you weren't afraid, and you made some messes, but you were working through them and learning things and showing us that this is possible. And I love that this is an example of like, yes, you can use ChatGPT or Claude to help make content. But there is so much more that AI can do, and I think this is a really great avenue for doing it. And if I can add, in my for-profit entrepreneur circles, the message that is going around everybody who is some sort of like expert who teaches their expertise or coaches using their expertise, they're all saying, if you are not embedding your expertise into some sort of tool or app that is able to share your expertise with your clients, you're going to be behind. So like in the for like we talk about like what is behind, like everybody, not just like those like donation app folks, because a lot of nonprofits are subject matter experts in mental health care, physical health care, developmental disability care, pet care, all the associations, right? There are so many experts. You need apps too. Just put that out there.
100%. It is. I heard someone say the other day, it's not that you need to use AI to stay ahead because it's now sort of expected. If you're not using AI, you're just by default behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the trick, I think, is to still put your human stamp on it because my wife and I use Gemini a lot now to help draft correspondence and to help draft social media posts and help draft this, that, and the other thing. But boy, it can hallucinate things.
Yeah.
It can just say things that are flat out wrong or lies. Like, dude, man, what are you doing here? You need to back up. We try to train your little chat Gemini thing, but
Yeah.
you just have to read it so carefully. And then to keep it truthful to your voice,
Yeah.
well, it's very helpful to generate this stuff. You cannot just walk away from it. You
No.
have to go in
Yeah.
and you have to read it carefully. You've got to put your voice back
Yeah.
into it.
And it has to be trained. Like, I get good stuff out of my ChatGPT because, first of all, I started by submitting transcripts from my own recordings, right? So it's never generating anything from scratch. But I used to have a fight with it because I have some real thought leadership around board leadership. And I would give it a transcript where I'm sharing my thought leadership, which is specifically like boards provide oversight, not governance. They do not set the vision. They do not set the mission. They do not approve the budget. And I was like super explicit. And ChatGPT was still like feeding back kind of the normal description. I'm like, specifically, don't say that. I said the opposite of that. And it would still spit back. But now it's gotten better now that it can like read across chats. It knows my thought leadership. It never spits out other people's ideas. It's so mine, but I've been using it now consistently. And even now to make sure it's trained well, I've uploaded past webinars just so it knows my thinking. And then when it gives me something and I edit it, I try to give it the final version back and say, hey, make some notes here about the changes I made from you so that you're even better. I've uploaded branding guides. I've had it evaluate my tone and then create a document for itself so it knows what words I use, my speaking patterns, right? So it's not like I just type something in and ChatGPT is so great. Like there was behind the scenes work that goes in, just like there's behind the scenes thinking in like how to get AI to code an app for you.
Well, I think what you just said is exactly what you were saying earlier. You've in essence, coded your expertise into the AI output.
Yeah.
So while it's not technically speaking an app, it's still helping you to present in volume your point of view, which is the value of it. If you can get it to present in, you in volume, that helps.
That's right. And that is why, I think for organizations creating apps, if you are an expert, if you are a thought leader, is so important because we now have the opportunity to help so many more people. This isn't just about like market yourself more. You can help so many more people if you have a layer that is AI driven because it's so scalable.
Well, this is true. And I mean, we're back we did get the app up and
Yeah.
running. Again, pay it forward, pifster.org, anyone who wants to see this app. Um, and it now is web based. And we're starting to feel confident again that we're in control. We're not dealing with Apple and Google web stores. If users call and say, or email and say there's a bug or something broke, and that seems to be that's a reality of tech
Yeah.
life. You're going to find things that are broke or not working the way you expected them to. But now I've got my code in house, well backed up, have complete access to it. When we get it, somebody calls and goes, "Hey, my donation didn't seem to go through," or something isn't reported right or something, I can jump right in. I can look at the logs. I can go to, I start my back and forth. Hey, Gemini, what's going on? Hey, Chat GPT, what's going on? Boom, boom, boom. And boy, I've been able to fix the bugs in house in minutes,
Yeah.
usually,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is unbelievable. And so we're starting to get our confidence back. We feel like we kind of, for all intents and purposes, soft relaunched again in October. We're still small fry. We're raising 300-400 bucks a month again, but the trajectory is going the right way now instead of crashing and burning. And we sort of feel like it was divinely put on our heart. So until we can't anymore, and this is probably where your other guests are like, boy, what a naive
No,
guy this is.
I just that is just so not true because I think one thing I love about the nonprofit space is it is full of heart-driven leaders.
For sure.
Very few of them said when they were younger, "I'm gonna be a nonprofit CEO. I'm gonna go to school for and then I will pick my mission of my choice." No, no, no. Like most people are heart first, mission first, and then they play catch up on leadership skills and systems and how to do all that. Once they're like, "Oh boy, like I'm gonna need more than just my heart." Heart
That's a
was
real
slower.
business here. What's that?
That's right, and it's a complex business model with a lot of moving parts and a lot of, like, indirect relationships. So, yeah, you are not alone. I think you're very much in the majority, and people will be very glad to hear somebody say
Praise God. I mean, we Yeah, I mean, we're not self-sufficient. I'm not gonna try and paper anything over, but we're aspirational for sure. We hope someday that I mean, well, this is probably trade secret, probably shouldn't say it, but I really, I need like 20,000. We need like 20,000 donors in order to be basically self-sufficient,
yeah,
like 500 now.
yeah,
So we're raising 3, 4, 500 bucks a month. But having said that, when we send a check for $300 to a dog rescue in some small town up in Oregon, they're like, wow, this is amazing. I can feed our dogs for a month on this. So it's really a blessing. We've really been able to do some amazing things. There was a little boy named Max Dollarhide who was one of our early donations. He was born with a condition called, I'm going to probably butcher it, but Vactural
okay. I've heard of
association.
it.
It's a really awful thing where his digestive tract was not connect.
Oh,
And within minutes of being born, he was on the operating table, and it was a life-saving operation because there was literally no way for food to get to his stomach,
yeah.
to get to the rectum and whatever. It was like a really awful, awful thing. and he's a blessing. He's still going, but his life is hard. And we were able to get we were able to help. I don't want to overstate. We were able to raise like $800, and we got he and his family, part of the way to Cincinnati for a big life-saving operation.
Yeah.
That $800 for them at that moment was like
Yeah,
something,
because
right? It
insurance
was
doesn't cover they might cover an operation, but they don't cover travel and hotel, and you need maybe 2 parents or a family member, or one has to stay home, or you need babysitters, for the other kids, like, whatever it is, and it is expensive to be eating out and trying to live near a hospital that isn't your own. There is so much that goes into caring for a sick child. I'm sure that was very meaningful for them.
absolutely, and it was meaningful to us as well. We've remained in contact with the family. That's one of the things too that was our vision from the get-go with Pister. There's a oh, I hate to say it, but there seems to be a declining trust in nonprofits. We keep hearing stories about big fraud here and big fraud there and whatnot. So from the get-go, we thought, well, we should make ours as transparent as possible. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that our app does is when you make a donation, it instantly presents on the website as anonymous, your, you know, first, last initial or whatever in your donation. So it's there. It's not like it's getting hidden in a big bucket somewhere. And the votes, we each month we generally promote or help promote 4 different charities in the community votes. And the charity that gets the most votes then will get the community donation, which has been accumulating in public view. So there's nothing hidden, nothing hiding. And then those we make a video showing that the donation has been made and what the money is being used for, because we just wanted to reestablish credibility or
Yeah.
something. So
And I love that. I love the commitment to transparency, and it's really unfortunate that those big news stories come out because, as I tell other people who know I work in the nonprofit space, I'm like, oh my God, isn't there like a lack of transparency and like people doing fraudulent things? I'm like, listen, the nonprofit industry is a highly regulated industry. You can go see their tax returns, like,
mhm,
you
mhm.
can see how much the top staff are getting paid, right? Like, I don't know of a for-profit company, like, other than, like, a public company where you can see that information. They're always so surprised because we don't do enough sharing of, like, all the ways that nonprofits are trustworthy and are regulated. The IRS is actually watching very closely, and that information is public for everybody. But on top of that, a benefit of transparency, I was just talking to my colleague. We're developing a fundraising program together to help folks master small organizations, master major donors. And we were just saying how, like, it's always good news to a donor, right? In that, like, even if, like, great news, our app crashed and now we have to rebuild it, we need your help, right? Like,
Right.
so it doesn't have to be a win to be a great conversation you get to have with your donors. And in fact, if you only have wins, you don't even need them, right? Like they want to be able to help in your challenging times so they can be there for that as well. Well, I love this conversation, how we ended up really diving into your experience with app development. Originally, I was like, we're going to talk about your fundraising model, which is cool too. And I don't want to diminish your work, but I'm really so pleased that you are here today to share some of that inner experience of building an app using AI and having to reboot it. That's what it's really like often. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for those who are, like, thinking, "Oh, I kinda wanna try this," or, "I wanna learn more about Pay It Forward," like, what kind of folks should be reaching out to you, and what's the best way to do that?
Oh gosh. Well, if you want to donate $1, you can always reach out. Go to Pifster, Pifster, pifster.org, and you can learn about us there and make yourself a Pifster. And of course, $1 is the minimum. We have people that donate 5 or 10 or 20 a month if they're really into it. So we appreciate that. You can reach either of us. It's my wife and I. So Chris at Pipster or Shoshana at Pipster. You can hit us that way. We're also on social media, all the big ones. We're pretty active on Facebook and LinkedIn. And I guess shameless promotion, but because I had this opportunity to build an app, I've also, at the same time, roughly, my wife had the idea for Pipster. She had another idea for a visual database called Pictabase, because it would be useful in the entertainment industry. So I'm diving back into the app building business using AI to build Pictabase, which is hopefully soon to go live. And maybe that'll help fund Pipster, which is the heart mission more than a profit
You will
mission.
get there. You will get there. Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you out there for listening and everything you are doing to make our communities better. And if you're listening to this going, we're making an app too, I would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me, Sarah at inspirednonprofitleadership.com. Tell me about the app you're making, and maybe we can feature you and your app making process on this podcast. And until next time, I wish you all the best.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.